Hey.
It's time for the Everyman podcast. So sit back, it's time to get your brain relaxed. So tune in almost every week as we share our thoughts that it's okay to speak. It's the Everyman, but it's for everyone. Making mental health priority one. But it's for everyone, making mental health priority one.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Everyman podcast. Now, tonight, we do not have a special guest, but we have a returning host. So, the man, the myth, the legend, it looks like he's been in Australia. We have Ethan Rowan back. How are you doing, Ethan? It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, Lewis. I'm great. Thanks for having us. I was doing just fine till I heard the intro music, and it just made me want to leave again. So, not gonna lie, that needs sorted out. That is like the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. Reminds me of Adam Sandler. They had a wedding singer where he's singing all these guitar on the plane. That is just awful. But yeah, I'm good,
You're not
mate.
a fan of
Cheers.
it?
No, I'm not a fan of that at all. I don't think anyone is. No offense, unless Callum is. But
It's catchy, like.
don't like.
How do you not like that?
I don't know. I just started
We
like
had lots of
regret.
good feedback on it. But did you
Yeah.
like the other version where we were trying to be rude boys with a little bit of rap music?
Probably not either. To be fair, I didn't like either. I just like where every week you would come and say, "Hello, I'm Lewis Fines, and we've got a special guest this week." Like every guest was special. Like that was my favorite thing ever. To be fair, but yeah, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back.
It sounds it,
I'm
mate. It sounds like you're so happy to be back.
I was trying to
One,
exit the studio. I was exiting the studio every time I was listening to that song. I was thinking, just getting closer, closer to leave, and just like, oh, I made a
Yeah.
mistake. I'd rather
Good.
just stay fat and depressed in my own company than be views now.
So, as you can see, we are back with a health podcast, and Ethan chucks himself right deep in it with being fat and depressed. Um, Before we get into you being fat and depressed, Ethan, Cal, how are you? It's been a few weeks, bit of a break, and now we're back.
yeah, good mate. Busy work-wise. Obviously ramping up with the start of summer. People are getting ready for summer holidays, things like that. Want to feel confident for that, and I think that kind of ties into everything that we're going to speak about today, which is great. And obviously great to have Ethan back. All that first minute of the pod was mayhem. Class.
I think the one thing we can always count on with Ethan being back on the podcast is he throws hand grenades of what the fuck did he just say? So I am very much excited to have to try and maintain some sort of structure to these episodes again with Ethan trying to derail them at every single opportunity that he can. So Ethan, we will touch on you a little bit before we get into the topic of tonight's episode. How have you? You've been away for a little bit. What's been going on in the world of Mr. Fat and Depressed? I can rinse you now
Yeah,
because you've done it.
you can rinses, but I've got a whole left sleeve full of Plymouth Argyle hair transplants. The lot up there, stepdaddy of the year, things like that up there. All that sort of stuff.
Oh my god!
So I've got them. Nah, I'm all right, mate. To be fair, like it's great to be back. Like I've been probably through the darkest time of my life. We'll touch on it in later episodes 'cause I don't want to derail the podcast by being negative. I'd rather just insult Callum for being on Manjaro, but I think that's where I'm at. But no, yeah, I'm doing well, mate. I'm on the up. I'm on the bounce from a really, really probably the darkest place I've ever been in my life. So it's
Yeah,
good to come back and maybe share that experience. But also, I think I was naive in the fact of saying that I was fixed. And I don't think mental health is something that can be fixed. I think it is just a journey, similar to your weight, similar to, saving for a mortgage. And you always want to climb the ladder. Like, I think if you're a fool if you think you're ever okay. You might have more good days and bad days, but you always have bad days.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just here to share my experience, but also share some positive life skills and try and be, out there for everyone else. Because we did get a lot of good feedback from the podcast. A lot of people would message Lewis, especially. I would get messages,
Yeah.
people's brothers, sisters, dads, things like that, sons, who
Any
are
other
struggling.
family relatives you're going to keep naming? I was crossing them
Yeah,
off on the family relative bingo there.
true. dogs, parrots, uncles, sisters, giraffes, things like that. But yeah, it was really good to be able to sort of help people. Like, even though we're not professionals, I think as building that community is so important, and being able to share our life with other people. And I'm not being funny. No one will relate to Lewis 100%. No one will relate to Callum 100%. No one will relate to me 100%. But if you can get 1% from me, or 1% from Callum or Lewis, or anyone else from the podcast, and your life is 1% better, then yeah, I've done a good job, and that's the goal. So yeah, I'm glad to be back. And I was sick of you copying all my ideas, Lewis. I'm not gonna lie. Like, we would go on walks, and I'd tell Lewis all these ideas. I told him to bring Callum on board. I told him Callum was a subject matter expert. I was like, get him on board. He's a, and Ryan's like, nah, he's not for us. Then all of a sudden, the next week he's in. What's going on? Do you know what I mean? So, but I didn't give that intro music. I'll confirm with that. I didn't give that intro music.
Yeah, nice. No, we're very happy to have you back. I think already just hearing you continue with, it's almost like you never left. You continued with the fact that you're happy to rinse the shit out of every single one of us as much as you possibly can on the podcast, and that is always good fun. Because I think one thing when people listen back to this is, like, you've insulted yourself, I've insulted you, you're feeling low, but that doesn't actually have necessarily a negative impact on how you're feeling.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think one big learning curve for me is, I can be an arsehole as much as I want, in a sense of I can self-destruct. But, for me, I think it's very important that you don't self-destruct around the people you love. And that's something I've took away the past few years, and I've learned from. I had a conversation with a good friend yesterday when I was down the beach. Someone
Sounds
had
romantic.
upset. It was romantic. We shared an ice cream.
Did you kiss?
No, we didn't.
No.
Maybe next time. But and I do you know what it is? Like, I was actually mature enough to turn around and say, look, I've made mistakes and I was in the wrong. And not even justify, but also have the courage to say, look, I felt like everyone else was moving ahead and I was very static, and that was scary, because you always want to feel like you're involved, you always want to feel like you're loved, and like, so I think for me it's always I've just seen that question online. Question for the bloke with a bad tash and mullet: why is the dress hang up behind him? So actually that is a surfing. That's a wetsuit for surfing, which goes with the mustache and the mullet. There's the first question of the day answered. I was having a nice moment.
Yeah,
I was actually having a nice moment.
Yeah, it was good, mate. I get what you're saying.
To be fair, Dan Ray just texted saying that he was invited to take part in the podcast, and he said he'd rather chuck himself over a bridge. So
you can't say that on a health podcast.
Well, why?
Come on.
All right, we'll move off it. God, we've all been fat and depressed. Come on, Vitey. You can make fun of it as long as you don't do it. Don't do it out there, guys. Don't do it out there.
No. So, to be clear, Dan does not want to jump off a bridge. So, I think that this is the point that we have to talk about, right? So, between mates and banter, you will very much get the fact that we can push each other's buttons, we can wind each other up. And that's actually how lads generally deal with banter, right? Or deal with us feeling low. So that's something that Ethan maybe goes past the line sometimes to a point there. But yeah, it's something that men use to generally cope with their mental health. And actually, when I think of the times that I've had that have been a struggle and that have been hard, the fact that Ethan, for example, or some of my other mates would rip me would actually make me feel better, and that I wasn't alone. Because when you're feeling low, you don't want to be any different to anyone else, really. Like, you want to still get ripped and have the banter and feel like you're part of something. Really, I think that's really important. So that probably leads me on to tonight's episode in terms of what we're talking about. So we are changing the way that the podcast works, and moving forward, we're going to run campaigns. Now, this 8-week campaign is all around helping inspire people to be the very best version of themselves. Now, within that, we will talk about 8 topics over obviously the next 8 weeks to help make you as a listener reflect, think, evaluate, and improve your life and push yourself outside of your comfort zone to try and create the very best version of your life. Now, tonight's topic is obviously kicking that off. And the topic of the conversation is it starts with you. So Callum and Ethan, so I'll ask the question to you, Callum, first. In terms of being the best version of you, and if you were to look back at some of the sort of transformational stuff you did, we looked at your health journey from being Ethan out of shape to then Chris Helmsworth in shape. What sort of work did you do on yourself initially to begin that?
So I think there was like several aspects of my kind of transformation. I would say, and yes, the physical side happened in a period of time, but it's also like the mental side. And I feel like I've spent years working on, again, a bit like what we're doing here, like how can you be the best version of yourself. So it's kind of discovering what your flaws are and kind of owning them. Kind of from a fitness standpoint, from the physique, it was like, okay, what am I currently doing, or what do I need to change to get to where I want to get to? One of the big things for me, and something that I've just kind of done a whole presentation on for everyone that I work with, is like bulletproofing your routine. Because once you have a good, solid routine in place, and it almost becomes seamless, and then when it becomes seamless, it's dead easy to get results because it doesn't feel like you're having to, push yourself to do something that you don't really want to do. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, just getting a solid routine in place, and one routine, even routine, knowing what I was doing. So scheduling, time management. And when you have that, in place, and I know it's not for everyone, I'm a little bit just like over the top, like everything has to be planned for each day. But that was probably the game changer for me. And also a lot of mindset work, reading books, listening to podcasts, finding coaches, whether it's for like my own business or for health and physique, mindset, stuff like that. I think kind of investing in myself rather than investing in things that were actually setting me back was a big game changer, because I look back about 1 to 2 years and I would never spend money. Obviously I'd buy things like clothes if needed and stuff like that. But if you ask me to invest a lot of money in a coach or a mindset coach or, education, it was always like, well, I'm hesitant, but actually invest that money in yourself rather than, takeaways on the weekend or drinking, things that you're just kind of wasting money on. Like, it's a short-term buzz that you get from those things, but actually when you look at yourself in the mirror or you go to work that next week, you're still unfulfilled, you're still unhappy. So those were kind of changes that I kind of put in place for myself.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on that side and just quickly touch on Callum's point there. One big thing I learned, and probably forgive us if I'm wrong, obviously Callum's always been fit as long as I've known him, football, he was very heavily involved when we were younger, things like that. The one big thing I would take away from that is don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to take a walk off that hypothetical ledge and not be able to fly. Like if you want to start running, if you want to start sea dipping, if you want to learn to play guitar, if you want to ride a bike, it doesn't have to be health, like mental health, physical health, things like that. You can do anything you want, but you have to be not afraid to fail, because you've got to be able to pick yourself up and keep going and keep going and keep going. The first 3, 4, 5 days will probably be the hardest, but once you're in that routine, it'll be easier to keep it going than not. So I think that's a big thing I took from Callum there. The fact of being able to go out there and really give it your all and be afraid to fail and hold your hands up, right? That didn't work. I couldn't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym. Let's try 5:30. Let's try 6 o'clock in the morning. As long as you're making positive steps, I think that's the most important thing in life. And that's what you've got to keep going. And that's the message for me. Don't be afraid to fail. Everyone does it.
Yeah, just to touch on that as well. It's like, that's a key thing for me. Like, one of the big things that I love is like, embrace failure. Like, the quicker you are to accept that you're gonna fail at things, the quicker you'll move forward in life. So it's like you said, don't be afraid of failure. Failure is just, it's just going to teach us lessons every single time. So, whatever it is, if it's like a business thing, if it's could be a relationship thing, it could be a health and fitness thing, whatever it is, you might fall flat on your face and it's like, okay, what didn't go well? Okay, so what's the problem solving? What can I change? And I'll go again. And then it's just like, a series of events where eventually you'll crack the code and get the result that you want in the end.
Yeah.
What,
So I
I'm going to jump
suppose
in here. Vindy, what do you think your biggest fail is this year, Vindy?
mine.
Yeah. What's the one you
Great
were afraid to
question.
fail in and failed? Sorry for cutting you off there, but I think this is such a good topic. I want to ask you, then I want to ask Callum.
Afraid to fail. Lack of consistency. If I'm honest, my biggest failure is setting goals, being consistent for a little period of time, and continuing to let myself down by not being consistent. That is by far, and it's always my problem. And I think it's because I'm going through the process of understanding that I have ADHD. So I can impulsively get very motivated to do something, but I'm maybe not doing it for the reasons that I want to actually do it, if that makes sense. I might be doing it for a reason like a short term change in my life because I want to try something, but then I go all in on it and then I drop it versus just instead of doing something 7 days a week, running, for example, I either run 7 days a week or I don't run for 3 weeks. That's my problem.
And how can
Same
you
to you,
overcome
Carl.
that then? Before we go on to
Oh
Cal,
God.
how do you think you're you're not getting off the hook that easy, mate? I'm back in the hot seat now.
How can I get off that?
Yeah.
Don't feel like I need to build better routines, habits. I need to be more considered in the actions that I take. I need to prioritize rest as much as action. I need to prioritize. So generally, right, we spoke about this before on the podcast. I look at my life. My life, I'm constantly spinning plates. So like work, family, friends, like the podcast, all those sorts of things. If I go all in on health and fitness, for example, I don't see my friends as much, or I don't see my family as much. So it's just trying to constantly juggle and drop, where actually I probably just need to not do everything 100% and do something 60, 70% and have a better consistency.
Good man. Brave you to admit that. Good luck, mate, and keep it posted how we get on.
Yeah.
What about you, Cal?
Cal?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on Lewis's one there, I think, it's something again that I speak to clients about all the time, where it's like, they'll either train loads once week, then do nothing the next. And I think the biggest thing for me is just like, just do what you can, just do a little bit. And then once you start, building those like, habits up, obviously making sure your time management's good so you can actually fit it in. You're not just, going and doing a workout instead of doing something that you've, meant to actually get done. It becomes easy because it does become a habit. It becomes part of your routine, and then you can build on that. So, one workout becomes two. Then within like, a few months, you might be, training or running like 4 times a week. But that consistency is a lot easier than trying to do every single day and then being like, getting next Monday and you're like, yeah, I'm absolutely burnt out. And then it's just like work's busy, life's busy. And then next thing you know, 3 weeks or 3 months have passed by and you're like, I actually haven't prioritized that goal that I had in mind. But I think for me, in terms of failure this year, I wouldn't say it's so much a failure, but just a big change. So, and I guess it is in a way it's a failure because I was, obviously alongside my business, I was like mentoring other coaches and I've kind of left that role. But I think the biggest thing for me is in like Q1 or the first kind of, 3 to 4 months this year, I was kind of planning out the whole kind of year ahead, from a budgeting standpoint for finances, work trips or kind of holidays or events and things like that. I knew kind of what was going to be coming in. I knew what I wanted to do in my business. And then obviously leaving that role, it's like, okay, back to my business. And although I'm happy with where it's at, it's like, I want to change everything. So in a positive way though, and I always think that with every negative there is a positive. Yes, I've kind of left that role, which I was enjoying doing, but I've got a lot more time for my own clients and my own business, which I can kind of help them more. Also the podcast, like for me, when I look at this, it's like, it's something I'm really passionate about, like helping people. So, this alongside, what I do for work, it's so fulfilling. And yes, helping other coaches was great, but for me, it's like, again, I wouldn't call it an absolute failure, but it was just like a big change that I went through. And only this month, really, I'm adjusting because last month was all over the place with being away and stuff like that. So exciting times ahead for myself, I think. But again, it's just taking that positive from the negative. And it's like, okay, income could be less or, schedules being disrupted or something like that. But what can I now do? Okay. And then I think that's what's exciting for me is like, I want to be able to help as many people as possible, whether that is, having like cheaper coaching programs, whether it's having, more live events like in person, doing more stuff with the podcast, like, meeting up with yourselves and the rest of the team, things like that. So it's kind of like, it was a bit like, right, that's a big shock, but cool, what's next? And I think, again, another lesson I would say everyone listening is kind of like, it's okay to feel like you're like, oh, I feel that something, I'm going to feel shit for a day or two. Or, something hasn't gone well, I'm going to feel shit for a day or two. But it's like, okay, but then what have you learned from that experience? Like, what can you take forward from this? Like, what have you learned? And what do you want to change? Because I realized, like, with that change, it made me realize, like, actually, I want to totally change my entire business. Like, I want to change how I coach people, how I interact with people, how much, kind of help I can give people. And then obviously, do more with the podcast team and stuff is going to be, amazing. Obviously, we've got a lot of big things planned, which I'm super excited about.
Same question to you, Ethan, then. You don't think you're getting away with it lightly?
Oh, what was the question? I forgot now. I was too busy looking at your head.
What's been your biggest failure so far this year?
What's been my biggest failure?
Look, he asks questions and he doesn't even know the answer himself, eh? Can you see the clocks ticking there? The cogs are moving.
My biggest failure in I'll give you in life is not
this year.
This year, I made several this morning. It's a tough question. I didn't expect you to ask me.
You asked me.
My biggest fail this year is probably when I tried to kill myself and I didn't do it.
No, that's not a failure though, mate.
But it's a failure in the sense of
that you could let your mental health get to that point.
Yeah, but I kind of wish I had done it, and that's the failure, and that's the thing. I wake up every day with a gun pointed right down my throat, and it's whether I pull the trigger that day or not. So that's my biggest failure. So for me, this is why I'm back here, because I want to help people. I want to help people make sure that they know they're okay. And I want them to know that they will be okay, no matter what. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fuck it up, but you will be okay, whether you want to be or not, because there's no other solution. There's nothing else that's going to happen. You will be okay. So anyone out there that's struggling, that's going through it, you will be okay, because you've not got another choice. And be like me and be like a coward. And that's the hardest thing in life.
We're having a podcast here. I have to jump in. You're not a coward for not committing suicide, and it's not your biggest failure for not committing suicide. Like we have to talk about this, and I didn't think the podcast was going to go in this direction, but like this is that's your biggest win. Like the hardest battle any of us ever have is the one in our own mind, because no one can see it, no one else can feel it. Like having that gun against my head too, thinking I don't want to be here anymore. That's one of my greatest achievements, that I was able to beat my own mind. And you woke up today, to your point, with a gun pointing against your head, and you won. So like, and I've watched you this year go and win a daily battle, and I've tried to be there as much as I can on the hours and hours of walks at the coast to try and make sure you are nowhere near a gun or a ledge or whatever that might be, because you're, mate, like, and I'm glad you met up with someone yesterday and you spoke to him, and like, I love that for you, and it's finding your community of people again. But mate, like, it is like the amount of people who love you. You are one of the kindest, warmest, funniest, weird person or people that I've ever met. But you've got so much love. So like, if this podcast can do anything, we always set out it would help change the world for one person. It's going to change your life as much as it changes everyone else's, because when you get to see the impact that you can have for everyday normal people by helping them see that life is worth living, it's hopefully going to make you feel like your life is worth living, because it fucking is, mate. Like, life is going to get better. I promise you. I promise life is going to get better.
No, I appreciate that, mate. Thank you, and I do appreciate it, and hopefully we can grow it together. And thanks to Conor Greaves in there as well for his message through that as well. But I'll be on here raw and uncensored, and I might say things that upset people. I might say things, but you'll get the truth, and that's sometimes hard to find. I'd rather tell you the truth whether you like it or not than shove something down your throat that you don't like. So yeah,
Yeah.
but for me, I think everyone has to know that they're going to be okay, and you'll fail, you'll trip, you'll fall over, you'll embarrass yourself in public. You'll do everything. That's part of growing. That's part of growing and being a person and making your own mistakes. So
So,
yeah.
I don't want to cut you across too much there, but we've spoke about some of this stuff before. So, in terms of, but I didn't expect you to say that on the podcast. I'm going to be honest. In terms of the topic of this conversation, so where I was thinking about where this conversation would go, we kind of haven't touched upon it. So I'm going to ask you both the question to think about it. So when I think about when I was at my darkest and lowest times, I was doing a lot of things that were making me unhappy. So gambling was obviously the big one. Potentially drinking alcohol, not exercising, not socializing with my friends, not prioritizing things like enjoyment, fun, laughter, all those sorts of things. And I had to do a real piece of self-evaluation. So within that, a real actionable way of doing that is look through your bank statements. What are you spending your money on? Because what you're spending your money on is generally where you're spending your time and energy. So if you're really unhappy, so Ethan, the same question to you, right? And we're using a fucking live, a live subject here. If you're really unhappy, if you were to reflect on the things that make you unhappy, and I'm not expecting you to do that on this, by the way, but if you were, where would you look? What would you look for? Like, what would you look at in your own life?
I'll give a quick overview, nothing major, then we can get on to the topic of this episode after we ask Carl the same
No,
thing.
this
It's
this is
probably be
this,
light
this
and
is yeah,
breezy.
this is part of it.
But no, I think for me personally, I think my mistakes are very much who you put your time into, where you put your money into, and sort of what you do with the talents that you've got. So I think Lewis, there's plenty of good things to one negative. You're really smart. You're not so funny. You're not so handsome, but you're also like really good footballer. Things like that. So like you've got to work with the tools that you've got. So looking over my past things, I've looked at bank statements. Yeah, probably eat far too much. Can spend stupid money on food, but also to people you surround yourself with and the environment you put yourself in. I think that's got a massive to do with it, and that's something I've moved away from. And that's
Yeah.
no reflection on anyone else. I think it can get on top of you. And I've mentioned it earlier when I spoke to my friend yesterday, and it was a really good point of I was open and honest saying I thought people were moving away from me. Some people are moving one direction, some people are moving another. And it caused like this implosion because I was stuck in the middle and didn't know whether I wanted to be 80, I wanted to be 45, or you
As in
don't
your
know.
mindset.
And yeah, in that sense, like some of us were still sort of living that lifestyle of going out, drinking, doing other things, spending loads of money that I didn't have, and then that puts you in a negative mind space because you've got 20 days left of the month and you've got £20 in the bank. Or some would be go the other side and they've got all girlfriends or partners and they're all going out together and you're left behind in the dirt because you've not got a partner at the time, or things like that. And it's hard to try and catch up with them. So then you feel very isolated because you do want to be 18 for so long, but then you also want to have that aspect of, well, why aren't I also 45 as well? You're stuck in the middle and you end up blowing up. But now everyone seems to be in a different headspace, and I'm building bridges with people that are positive for us. My pal yesterday, very positive influence, always has been. I probably don't see that most of the time because again, I'm getting myself caught up in what's going on. You don't see the long-term picture. You're too busy caught up in yourself. And just because you think you're important, I think I'm important. That's me. I'm not as important as I think I am to Lewis. Lewis doesn't think I'm the most important thing in the world. Same with Callum. Callum probably thinks he's the bee's knees. I'm the most important guy going. But Callum's my friend, but I don't wake up and think about Callum. I don't think about what he's going to eat if he wants to come for food late. I think that. So you've got to. There was a solar system I seen on I've gone off tangent here. I think it was online. It was like you are the center of your solar system, so the world revolves around you. Then it's who
Your
you
world revolves
choose. You've
around
got
you, yeah.
like, yeah, my world revolves around me. Then you've got your next ring of planets. So you've got like your mom, your family, your best friend, maybe people. Then you've got your next ring, who are your friend, your close friends. And the further you go out, the more you aren't as important. So you've got to reflect on that, because Lewis, you're the center of your own world. I'm probably 3 or 4 rings out. We might not speak every day, we might not go for walks every day too. Thanks, pal, appreciate that. I'll bump you down to 7th ring.
I knew
Anyways,
that was coming.
but it is important that you regulate your own mental health and you don't take things too personally. And I used to be criminal for that, taking things a lot of the time
Yeah,
personally.
you did. I
You
agree.
know,
You did, definitely did.
and so, like, for me now, that's a big thing. Don't take things personally, because you don't know what someone else has got going on as well. You don't know, Lewis. We could be going your birthday night out, and you forget to invite me, and then all of a sudden, World War III. Do I not matter? Do you know what I mean? What's going on? And then in my head, I'm thinking Lewis thinks I'm the worst person in the world. He hates us. Like, have I upset him? Things like that. Well, no, you've just got to come to terms that Lewis is a hard work guy. He's got plenty of friends, family, a son. In the grand scheme of things, if you're invited along to something, great. If you're not, don't take it personally. And don't be afraid to sort of say the question, you mind if I come? If you're desperate to be somewhere, just say, you mind if I come? There's no
Yeah.
shame, you don't have to hide away from it. But what
Yeah.
about Callum?
So yeah, Callum, he kind of took you off topic a little bit there with around the universe for some reason to planets, and
Yeah.
and I hope he's laughing there. But so generally, like that self-reflection piece, what would you do?
Strange one for me, because I think, like, a lot of the kind of usual struggles, I look back and I'm like, I don't think I've had that. Like, for example, when people are drinking because they're kind of depressed and stuff like that. Like, the only time I can imagine, or I kind of, think about the time I maybe over drank, was when I was like, I got injured when I was playing college, like, well, soccer, whatever, and like had like completely
Don't
stopped
say that.
like playing. I know, shocking, but it's one of those things where, like, I look back and at the time I was like, mint, I'm having a class time. I can't play, but I'm going to parties, or I'm going on nights out, and I'm doing this. But actually, I was just masking the fact that I was probably deep down really gutted, like, about the situation. But more so, like, in, I guess, like, current times, it would just be things like, for me, love me food. And I think that's one thing, like Ethan kind of said there. It's like, you look through your bank statements, like, right, I'm wasting so much money on food to try and feel better. I feel like I don't really waste money on just buying like material things, but I think that the biggest thing is like where you put your time and energy. So, I look back at kind of when I was, I guess more in recent years, like a lower time, it would be, okay, wasn't training, wasn't kind of exercising as much as, I probably wanted to. Or even if I was, I probably wasn't giving it like the right kind of effort. So then it gets frustrating, because you think, and I see this all the time with people I chat to, is like, they're like, well, I'm going to the gym 3 times a week, but nothing's changing. But it's because I haven't got the right program or intensity and stuff. They're kind of it's a tick box exercise. But I think the biggest thing, like with time and energy, is also like what Ethan said, is like, it's your circle, it's who you spend time with. Now, I would not say, I've put myself around negative people, but I think one thing I kind of struggled with was I came back from the States, and a lot of my mates, had kind of what Ethan said, like, some were like single, they still thought they were 18 in their head, going out, drinking, whatever. Then the rest of them were all kind of like settling down, having kids, houses and stuff like that. So it was a weird kind of position for me to come back into. And then a lot of the lads who I then started kind of hanging around with, like, it was kind of guys I went to high school with, but all of those, like, every single person was in a relationship apart from me. So if they ever had, a barbecue or going to the pub or something, I was always just a tag along. So I don't think that kind of negatively affected me, but it also was a bit like a weird one where it was kind of like, am I bothering them by coming along, to their barbecue? And then as they've all pretty much all got kids now as well, and I don't, it's kind of one of them again where it's like, they'll all go and do things where, they'll take the
Daddy
kids
stuff or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and do I ever expect them to say, Callum, do you want to come to the park? No. But it's just like one of those things where it's like, oh, right, I can't hang out with my mates now. And I think, for everyone, especially blokes, like, you need to have those friendships, you need to meet up with people. And
Yeah.
kind of be in that good space. And I think one of the cool things for myself now is obviously, again, I think another big kind of thing for me was kind of stepping away from the gym floor. That was a big change, like being online, sitting on a computer. You can obviously go on a Zoom call or a phone call, but it's always not the same. And I think, being in like business mentorships and like coaching mentorships, like, yes, I'm there for a certain reason, like to have a better business or to be a better coach. But the connections I've made through them,
Like-minded people.
has been amazing because, they get, my schedule. Like some people probably just think, oh, Callum sends, a workout plan once and then he'll do a check-in on a Friday and that's it. But, when you're self-employed, there's like kind of a lot of hats or kind of party juggling. And sometimes having people in the same industry or even just people with the same kind of likes and kind of dislikes, I guess, it's nice because you're having like conversations. It could be like a catch-up. Like there's a couple of guys who, I used to work with, and we on a Friday have like a little catch-up. And even that, like, is a great kind of little, half an hour to 60 minutes with those two guys to see, like, how's life, how's business, how's training, all those things. Whereas if I didn't do those types of things, again, I'd probably say, obviously, I know I can come and meet you guys anytime, but it's like, who would I then hang out with? Like, yes, I've got my girlfriend and she's amazing, but when it comes to, like, the guys or the lads to hang out with, it's like, there isn't that kind of connection anymore. So I totally get what Ethan means, where it's like, do you want to go down the route of, kind of being that kind of young mindset, spending money on going out drinking, but then, at our kind of age, it's like, well, you kind of feel like maybe I should settle down, I should be investing the money into other things and stuff like that. So I know that's probably not a great answer, but I think, like I said, for me, it's more so like every time I've been in like a negative mindset at all, there's always been different reasons, whether it was kind of, illness, injury, life things, family things going on. I wouldn't say I have like I said, some of the struggles that a lot of people have where it's like they'll turn to, people turn to alcohol, drugs,
Substance,
things to
whatever,
make them feel good. Yeah. But yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me is just making sure you surround yourself with the right people. And obviously the team we've got, for the Everyman podcast is mint as well. Like we're all here for the right reasons. We can all help each other as well. Like obviously I didn't know, Ethan, how you felt in kind of that situation. So that was a big shock to me. And obviously I'll kind of awkward laugh it off because obviously we're all having banter and that's what lads do. But mate, like yeah, I'm glad you're still here, mate.
Yeah.
No, I
100%.
appreciate it. Thank you, mate. And I resonate with you a lot, mate. And thing is, you're a great guy. Much better than that bald bugger next to you. But you're a great guy, so it's credit to you, to be fair, on that side of things.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back, mate. I'm kind of regretting why we did now, but it is what it is. Anyway, moving on to the next section. So that was a brief topic on how to be the best version of you. It starts with you. I think a lot of it, just to summarize, is to do a real deep dive and reflection on yourself. What are you spending your time on? What are you spending your money on? What are your habits like? And are the habits and the places where you're putting your time, energy, and money, are they aligned to the person that you want to be? So even a really simple exercise I did, I looked at my bank statements. I wrote, like I had it all wrote out. I then like highlighted against in red and green, red something that didn't align to making me happy, green that something did. And I was finding I was spending so much on red. Drinking was a big one. Buying pointless things, just as we all do. And very limited was like going for a coffee with a friend or going for a walk or like, and it's amazing how much you spend so much money on the things that are bad for you as well. And so many of the things that are good for you, like going for a run, going for a walk, going to the gym, they're free or they're really cheap. So actually, once you start to rebalance that priority of, instead of wasting so much time, energy, money into negative things, you can very quickly change your mindset and how you feel. So that's one to take away from the topic of this conversation. But as we move on to sort of the last bit of this episode, so we are reducing our episodes. We're going to try and get them down to 60 minutes. We have a really exciting event coming up. And it is our first ever event as a podcast, where we are going to try and attempt to run or move even. I will try and run it, but I won't be able to run 100k, but I want to. Maybe I should say I will, and then I will. Let's reckon that Luke Ambler told me off for that, actually, didn't he? I think it's probably the most defining moment for the podcast to date, where we move from being a group of people just talking about health to actually getting people off their arses or away from doing things that are potentially not as good for them to come and do something to help us raise awareness for suicide prevention. So it's 10,000 kilometers in 24 hours, and we need you to help us do it. What is your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on that, guys? What's coming up?
Go first. No, super excited. I think it's going to be a big event. I think, like you said, it's probably one of the biggest things for the podcast. I know I'm relatively new. I know, Ethan, you're obviously coming back, but you were one of the OGs of the podcast group, and I think it just takes things to a whole new level. But I think it's for such a good cause, such a good reason. It's a big target to hit, but I know for a fact that people will get involved, and whether that's with us on the day, whether it's from afar, like that's a cool thing. Like you can walk, like you said in there. I think on the post you can crawl. If you're on crutches, wheelchair, if you want to run 100 kilometers, everyone can get involved, and that's a beautiful thing. So exciting times ahead. Obviously, going to be raising money for a great cause, and obviously bringing awareness to suicide prevention, which I think is massive. But I think I also just think it'll be a great way of everyone as a community coming together, meeting each other. Obviously we all know each other, but I mean, like listeners and stuff like that, and hopefully from the sounds it will get some other people involved, which would be really, really good. Should be an absolutely amazing day.
Ethan, your thoughts?
I think going back on what was spoke about earlier is you're gonna fail, you're gonna fall, you're gonna look like an idiot. So why not come and do it with us at this this challenge? Why not come fall flat on your arse? Come walk, come run, come. If you're in a wheelchair, I'll push you. You can have some crack with me. Things like come and be a part of something bigger than yourself. Come expand your universe. Come be something bigger than yourself and try. Just try. That's all we're saying. Just come and walk 1K. You can do 1K in 12, 13 minutes.
2.5 laps around the track.
2.5 laps.
You can come
Exactly. And we might have food vendors there. I'm hoping we are, because I'm not going to go if there's no food vendors. So I'm hoping there's like Acropolis there, Pizza Hut maybe there, Kebab King might be there. I'm hoping like Gill's Fish and Chip Shop be there, Delicious be there, Crepes will be there.
And what are you going to have for your main? What are you going to have for your main?
I don't know, but I'm hoping there's food vendors there. Are there food vendors there, Vindy?
We're trying. Yeah, it's all part of it. So what I would say to listeners, right? We are just a group of normal people. We are not experts in events. We are not experts. Let's give ourselves some credit. We are a little bit experts in health. Callum definitely is an expert, but some of us aren't. And it's one of those. Yeah, Ethan's got to drop. Do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah, I'll say goodbye to everyone. It's been lovely seeing you. Sorry if I've offended anyone and all that shit. I don't really care. But yeah, thanks for joining. Listen to every man. We'll change the music and there'll be food vendors there at the run. If not, I'll do my own run and we'll do a little route through all the food factories in Seal Devil. But have a great time, guys. Thanks for having us on. See you later.
Awesome. Right, cheers, mate. Thank you. Right. Wow, that was an absolute roller coaster having him back. But essentially, yes, we are not experts, and anything that listeners can do to help is huge. So that's potential businesses who want to help sponsor, volunteers who want to help make the day bigger. So like, we're going to need water, nutrition there. If there's people who do sports massage, can you come and bring your massage bed and do some massages for people after they've hit 30, 40, 50K or whatever that might be? People to help come and do a big warm-up for people, yoga for some stretching, like food vendors, anything we can do to make this an event. We will advertise the fuck out of your business. We will talk about it all. It's all, the whole day is going to be filmed, captured, spoke about. There'll be interviews on the day. It's all about making as much noise as possible. The Northeast to the UK. Obviously, we have listeners all over the country and all over the world. But the Northeast, where the actual event physically is going to take place, obviously you can take part wherever through Strava Club. But the Northeast has the highest suicide rate in the UK. So every single one of us around here probably know someone or know of someone who's taken their own life. And that's fucking terrifying. And I was absolutely so close to being one of those people that it's just not right. If you're a man under the age of 45, the most likely way you're going to die is by suicide. How is that in today's world? How is that right? Like, we see all of the big things for COVID, we see all of the big things for cancer, and yes, well, COVID. We'll not get into COVID on today's episode, but cancer obviously kills considerably more people. But there's nothing into stopping people from killing themselves. So yeah, we are on a mission to stop that. The funds that we raise will all go into the Everyman podcast, funding free counseling, free therapy for people, funding free potential physical training with Cal to get people feeling like they're not alone. I think the big piece that we learned from having Luke Ambler on was that, who is obviously founder of Andy Mann's Club, that the biggest reason why people generally take their own life is through lack of hope. Let's give people some hope to be here. Let's make them realize that life is worth living. And we need your help. And this is a bit of a calling cry to say, we are just a group of people who need your help to make a difference. The reason why it's 10,000 kilometers is because we can't do it by ourselves. If it was just 100 kilometers, we could do it as a podcast. We would make a bit of noise and it'd be done. But 10,000 means that you all need to get involved to help us make a difference. So yeah, there's my pitch for it.
Yeah, I think 100%. The more people we can get involved, and raising money for a great cause. Like I said, we are normal people. I think we all know someone who has unfortunately went down that route. We've all been affected by it, or if not someone close, we know someone who has been affected by it. And I think it's, like you said, the Northeast. We're passionate people. We all like to help each other. With arguably a bit biased, but the best people in the land. And I think it's one of those things where it's just like, let's just come together. One big day. It's for a great cause. Everyone get involved. If you've got that, some spare hours, a spare half an hour, or if it's just donating and doing a walk on Strava.
Exactly.
Every single person can help out here. And to touch on one of the kind of the mottos of it is every life matters. And I think it's important that people do have hope in life for going forward, and then hopefully this day will help anyone who is struggling.
Yeah, fully agree. So yeah, we will be messaging as many people as we know, recruiting you to come and get involved. So if you don't volunteer, we are disappointed, but we're not going to let you off easily. We're going to ask you. We're going to come with our begging bowl of please come and help us make a difference to society, because this is our chance. Very few times in life do I think we actually truly get a chance to make a difference. And imagine you just getting involved could save someone's life, because someone might come and get involved because you are. And then they could find a community of people, as we've talked about on this episode, surrounding yourself with the right people can change your life. So if we can help people find the right people, the right level of support to make them feel like life is worth living, then surely that's worth half an hour of your time. You literally get to be a superhero on the 29th of June and help save lives. So yeah, let's make it happen. Cal, are we happy to wrap it there?
All good.
Nice end to the episode.
The message has been put across.
Yeah, I think we've smashed that one. So yeah, thank you to all for listening. We do really appreciate it. Again, a slightly shorter episode. The start of an 8-week campaign for you to be the very best version of you, and we will catch you next week. Thank you and good night.